Good evening, everybody. I'm calling to order the Middlebrook Elementary School, Booth Hill Elementary School Roof Building Committee meeting. Our first order would be the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thanks everybody for being flexible and being willing to convert to Zoom. It made it much easier for me. Barbara, would you please call the roll?
Patricia Borgeson,
Present.
Joanne Glazer Orenstein. Here. Tony Cinto,
Here.
Joy Cologne is unavailable. Stephen Cahill is unavailable. Lynn Salta,
Here.
Mark Hoffman is unavailable, and Chris Bandecki.
Okay, well, maybe Chris will be joining us a little bit.
And Michael Ward. I'm sorry,
Michael
Mr.
Ward.
Ward, I forgot you.
How could you forget, Michael? Okay. So the minutes were distributed, the minutes of August 24th. I'd like to know if we could have a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Do we
I'll
have a
second
second?
that.
Okay, and then I'd like to know if there were any questions or there's any discussion on the minutes. And if not, could we pass those by unanimous consent? Okay, hearing no. Okay, so it sounds like everyone, we can do that. Okay, thank you. They are passed by unanimous consent. The first item on the agenda that I'd like to discuss is the position of vice chairman on the committee. You may remember that Robert Christiani had served on the committee previously. He had to step back because of work and professional commitments. But he was serving as the vice chairman. Now, I'll call on Cindy or Dan to correct me, but my understanding is that the vice chairman can step in for the chairman if the chairman for some reason is not available. If the chairman were to resign, it is not an automatic assumption that the vice chair would step into the chairman's role. Certainly, it would be great if that person did it, but it's not an obligation for the role. And I think it would be helpful to have a vice chair because, well, you never know. I mean, it's good to have a backup. It's good to have a plan B. So I'm asking if anyone would like to talk about this position, or is anyone really willing to step forward for this position? Because it'd be very helpful to have it. Now, Cindy, just refresh my memory. If someone says that they're willing, then would they then be sworn in by the first selectman, like at the next meeting or something?
No, it's not. It's nothing to be sworn in. It
Okay.
would just vote of the committee.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so do we have any volunteers that want to step forward? Well, if it's something you'd like to think about, or you'd like to contact me personally and discuss it or speak with Cindy, I think that would be wonderful. As I said, I think it'd be an asset for the committee, be good for the committee structure. But I realize that, you know, I've just brought this up and people need time to think about it. So, so do let me know. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, as you see, we included with the materials for the minutes for this month, both the financial report for the Middlebrook roof replacement project, showing the balance available of $1,597,000 of $597,926.54. We also included the Booth Hill roof replacement. This is the assessment phase where we're getting a handle on the roof of what we need to do, for which we hired Antonazzi Associates, and we also reached out to Eagle Environmental for an investor study. So the budget on that was, excuse me, initially $40,000. We have made payments to date to Antonazzi Associates of $5,280. And we have a balance today of $29,951. Does anyone have any questions about these reports? Okay. Thank you. All right, so now we get to the really fascinating stuff. An update on the Middlebrook school roof. I think I'd like to ask both Dave Cody and then Kevin Bova and perhaps Paul Lisi to comment on this agenda item. Should we start with Dave first?
Well, as most of you know, we got approved for the grant increase that was applied for through an EDO 49R, and that gave us permission to go right out to bid. Mr. Lisi did contact Kermit up at OSCR, the Office of School Construction Grants, and he confirmed that we didn't have to go back through another PCR, which saved us a lot of time and trouble. So Paul compiled the drawings and the specs, got them over to Kevin. Kevin got them out on the street. They had a site visit on Monday. I was unfortunately not able to attend because they roped me into some training on for our custodians that I had to conduct. So I'll hand it over to Kevin and Paul to update us on the number of contractors and how the walkthrough went.
So Monday at 10 a.m. we had 2 roofer contracts, Silktown and Bartlett Roofing came, and also this guy Kevin from the state. He's a local union. He makes sure, he was here before, making sure that people work. He takes video and stuff, make sure people working on the roof are getting paid the prevailing wage. I'll put it that way. He's been in here a few times. He had issues with us at the Trumbull Library, but he came to the walkthrough. Since there was no big discrepancy in the specification requirements, we're just assuming that the first round of people that came, we had a big audience, and the people who bid on the first bid are already aware of what's out there again. So we think, we think we hit everybody. We should have a good amount of bids. We're thinking, we haven't any questions yet for an addendum, so that's good. So there must be clear specifications and requirements. We're done good by Paul and his Antonazzi, because we don't have any questions yet. And on the website, you could see the listed of bids that came in before and the people that attended before. So this just added on to more this last walkthrough with these 2 guys, people just walking the roofs. And we did talk about, and Paul will maybe go into this, about when awarded, when they have to order their materials probably right away, whether they're going to stage them or we're going to stage them somewhere, and the timeline of scheduling for next summer. But we're hoping everything comes in under budget. Paul, if you have anything.
Yeah, no, just, there were 2 contractors that attended, like Kevin said, that there were 2 contractors that were here previously back in March. But I agree that I think, most people have seen the project, and because there hasn't been any changes to the plans and specs, they feel, comfortable that they didn't have to come out again. It wasn't a mandatory requirement, but typically on roofing projects, we get some pretty good responses. So I'm not concerned that we're not going to get enough bids. I don't think we have that issue. And then we did briefly talk about the fact that because here we are in soon to be October, the bids are due on October 13th. If we award a contract in late October, early November for a project that's going to be in construction in the summer of 2023, potentially the way materials the costs these days, and Kevin knows about this, and Dave certainly, there is a potential that contractors may come back at some point and request additional money for the increase in costs, even though they've signed a contract. And there's a potential, because a lot of the roofing material suppliers will not commit to a price for their products until the material is shipped. So if it's not shipped until, say April, they will actually bill the contractor, they will charge the contractor whatever the cost is in April. So unfortunately, that's something that we need to be aware of and may run into. And it's not just for this project. I'm sure Kevin can speak to it. It's happening throughout. So what we've told them basically is that if they have a legitimate, request from the supplier, with a letter on their letterhead, we may, we'll probably have to entertain it. No, I don't know, Kevin, if you want to expand on that, or Dave.
Yeah, so most bids that we are getting, I'll put it for town engineer, WPCA, if it's piping or something that comes in for sewer work, we'll order the piping now and have a contract agreed, say $1 million for the whole project. The piping comes in, they might, and they don't add any 10% or anything. They'll give us an invoice exactly what the material cost them. If it's a $25,000 or $40,000 increase on the piping, we usually agree to pay that because that's the cost of doing business right now. So we told these, Bartlett and Silktown did bid the last one. They're both within like $5,000, $6,000 of each other, around 2.3. So we kind of told them to sharpen the pencil. Hopefully they can do something better. Greenwood was low on it last time, so I'm sure they're gonna bid again. But they're all gonna have the same thing. They're all gonna order the same material from somewhere, and then when it's shipped and it get here, unfortunately, you're not gonna get the lower cost if it costs less for the materials. But if it does cost more, we might have to pay them. Might not be a significant amount more, but it will be something that we have to be aware of that we might have to pay. It's happening on all most of the bids we're doing now, especially with Board of Ed, and Dave knows, and also town engineer and WPCA.
So how's that going to work with the state? Dave?
That's a good question. I've never faced, I'm telling you the truth, I've never faced that issue with the state before. Hopefully we'll see where the numbers lie and what type of contingency we may have available in the number, and
Right.
cross that bridge as we get to it, I guess.
It'll be considered a change order, and again, the state, this is not new to them, so it's something that they're seeing throughout.
Okay.
But we do award and contract after you guys agree who's the best qualified and low bid. We will have their bid bond, performance bond, payment bond, maintenance bond in the town locked. So think about this, that locks them up for bidding other projects.
Yes.
That's their bonding capacity. So, it's not like they're not taking it serious and they want to do this what's best too. So we'll all have a little piece in the, of the
To make
pie.
it work.
Right.
Does anybody have questions?
I do. I don't know if you can hear me or see me, Pat.
Yes, I can now.
Okay. My question's for Kevin. I'm confused about, I understand the price increases and the difficulty with shipping and all the backlogging, but is there anything in the contract that deals with this situation?
Well, maybe Dan Shopek can get in, but we have town contracts with Force Majeure and other things that unfortunately, if there is a change order, we look at it, and if we all agree that it's reasonable, we're gonna have to make the change. There's nothing in the contract that we can lock them in the exact price, and they ship something that's $100,000 more. They're not gonna eat that cost. We wouldn't expect them to. Dan, if you want to put anything.
Yeah, it's Dan Shopik, and just before I start, people please remember to announce your name when you speak, because FOI requirements on a Zoom call.
Thank you,
Um,
Dan.
Basically, usually they're unforeseen circumstance, kind of their provisions in the contract. They would have to prove to us that they are, there may be something as to, how much above the cost. They would have to show you what the cost, their original cost was, what the additional cost is, but there would be provisions. The idea is not to bankrupt the company in order to do the job for you.
Joanne Glasser-Orenstein.
Thanks. I was just wondering, and forgive me if this is a dumb question, but do the contracts work in that we pay the contractors fees and then we pay for the materials at their cost, or are they free to mark the cost of the materials up as they choose to?
So in the bid, we just have a total base bid cost. We don't have it broken down in materials and labor.
Okay,
But, when we have a pre-scope award meeting, we may break it down, Paul, myself and Dave, and ask them that. Just because, as Dan said, and we told them in this meeting Monday that they would have a letter from the supplier stating of what they proposed to sell the material to and what it came in at. And it wouldn't just be from the vendor himself, the client telling that. We would need a certified letter from the vendor saying that. So we were pretty detailed on what we asked them for.
To just expand on that, typically a contractor would mark up, they always mark up on the materials. It's pretty much standard procedure.
Madam Chairman, Mike Ward, do we have to notify the Board of Finance that some money will have to add it to our overall amount that they awarded to us? Are they aware of this kind of, back and forth? May go up, may go down.
Well, so
I don't know.
this is Pat Borgeson. Would you like me to respond to this to the extent that I can?
Well, as long as they know it, it may not be the price they gave us. We may have to come back for some more money. Or they're saying, don't bother coming back. I don't know.
When we initially went for a price for this roof, we were significantly over. Then, as the prices escalated, we were concerned that we wouldn't have enough money. Then, when we factored in what the state was willing to contribute based on the new budget for the project and what we have enough money to complete the project as presented. We have factored in a certain percentage, I believe it's a 10% cushion within the project itself, the total cost. So if we need money, I think when we go to the Board of Finance, we won't know that until we move further along with this project. Dan Martin, would you say that's a correct assessment?
Dan Martin, the Finance Department. There's a bond authorization out there now, which is represented by what we just showed you, the $1.5 million. That's what we have to deal with. Now, once all this stuff, the bids come in and it comes in significantly over or marginally over, and the contribution from the state, depending how much it is, there may be funds available that Dave Cody can release from other projects within that funding authorization year. If there aren't funds that Dave can release, then we have to go to the Board of Finance and ask for a modification to the funding authorization increase for whatever reason. And the Dave and the committee would provide the documentation or the information necessary to cover off on that increased expense.
Thank you for the answer. Very good.
Are there other questions for Kevin or Paul or Dave Cody? Okay, well, Kevin, you had said something in your communication. When are the bids due?
October 13th, I believe.
October 13th.
Okay. So we need to have a meeting the following week to review the bids and make the recommendation. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything, anything else on this project that we want to discuss at this moment? Okay. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Dave, for following up with Oscar. Thanks, Paul and Kevin, for putting this together so quickly and getting it out on the street. I hope we get, obviously, I hope we get some good bids, and I hope we get several, and we have our choice to pick. So,
Well, I think with the last bids coming in, and they're obviously available on the town website, what the results are, hopefully they, pricing is still the same, maybe they sharpen their pencil, maybe we still get around that low bid that we want.
right, that'd be great.
I think so.
Okay. All right. Unless there's something else somebody else wants to bring up, I'm going to turn our discussion now at this point to the Booth Hill School roof. Okay with everybody? Okay. So on the Booth Hill School roof, there are a couple of items I'd like to discuss. But first, I want to turn to Dave Cody and ask him if he received back that asbestos report from Eagle.
No, we have not received it. In fact,
Okay.
there was a little bit of a delay getting them a purchase order and then coordinating with them and the roofer. That was kind of a mix up there, but they were there Tuesday. The roofer was there with them. They took
That's good.
samples, so I would expect we'd see a turnaround on the results within probably 10 to 15 days. So we should have verification of any asbestos containing materials within the next 2 weeks. So
Right,
probably
that's
about the time we meet again to discuss Middlebrook, we should have the results back. I'm hoping.
Okay. All right, that's great. Does anybody have a question for Dave regarding this? If not, I'm going to bring us forward. In our materials, we received a couple of items from Paul Lisi, excuse me. One was the conceptual cost estimate for the Booth Hill Elementary School roof. And the second is the draft educational specifications. They're both actually still drafts. Paul, would you like to talk about the cost estimate first?
Sure, yes. Paul Lisi from Antonelli Associates. So we've prepared a conceptual cost estimate based on the assessment report that we prepared and with the recommendations that were identified in the report. I believe you all have a copy of it, and it's pretty straightforward, broken out with the construction costs, and then there's a escalation percentage, and there's a contingency, and then some of the soft cost. So if you look at this, the total is roughly 2.9 million. That's based on a roof with a square footage of 54,000 square feet. It's slightly less. Middlebrook was 57,000, but it's pretty much negligible as far as cost. But Booth Hill is a little bit more complicated. If you're familiar with the building, of course, it has those folded, what we refer to as folded plate roofs, which make it more complicated in installation wise. So the square foot costs are more, and also in projecting the costs, 2 years out, basically. Obviously, the costs also are higher for that reason alone. So, the result is roughly 2.9 million.
Right. Dave Cody, didn't you, oh, I'm sorry, I should ask, does anyone have specific questions for Paul? Okay, I have one for Dave. Dave, you're starting to put together your budget for the 2023, 2024 year, the capital budget for the schools. And obviously the Booth Hill Elementary School roof will be in that budget. What figure are you using for that? Or have you gotten there yet?
Yes, I did get there, and I was going to report that last night, the Board of Ed did approve their 5-year capital plan because the whole process has been moved forward up as recommended by the town. So last night, I had $2 million approved for this project. I took the $2,983,000 that Paul gave us as an estimate, and I multiplied it by our share, which came to just under $2 million, $1.986 million. So my request was for an even $2 million, and that was approved last night by the Board of Ed. So the next step will be, and that's for 2024 capital year, not 2023. And so the approval of the capital plan with the 2 million will meet that one of the requirements for us to apply for the grant. So if the
Okay.
town council adopts that capital plan with the 2 million, we'll be able to apply for the grant.
Okay, I have a specific question, and this is just my ignorance. I don't remember something from the last go around. Does the state pay for soft costs, or do the town have to absorb those?
The state will pay, this is Dave Cody again, the state will pay for soft costs. There's certain ineligible soft costs that they won't pay for. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. Paul may be able to throw something he's seen before. But, you know, our typical soft costs that we'd be looking at on a roof project is usually just the design cost. We don't try and seek any, you know, staff reimbursement type costs, which would definitely be ineligible. So I think Paul's estimate with the 15% for soft costs is sufficient. Very, you know, I think it's a good number. So I think we're in decent shape. And yes, the state should pay for soft costs, which, you know, are legitimate project costs.
Okay. All right, thanks for clarifying that. Does anybody have, now, let's just remember that we're talking about this not in the summer of 23, but in the summer of 24. So does anyone have additional questions for Dave or Paul at this time? And Paul, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Madam Chair, Mike Ward,
No.
Dave, there's a question for Dave. Didn't we just have the evaluation done by that outside consultant group on the Booth Hill School? I understand, talking to the principal, they came and visited school, did their inspection.
Yeah, we did have a facility condition assessment done by Tecton Architects, who was selected for the master plan effort. And they pretty much visited all the schools at this point, but we have not received any of that work yet. That's still you know, underway, and it will take them a while to compile the information and make it a presentable form to us. You know, they're aware that, you know, I just sent them today my approved capital plan by the Board of Ed, but I also sent them last year's capital plan. So they're aware that we are doing this roof at Booth Hill, so.
Okay. So now I have a question. This is Pat Borgeson. Do you think anything in that report is going to change the capital number for the ed plan regarding this roof? Or is that, it's just too early to say?
This is Dave Cody again. I think it's too early to say, but the roof is the roof. I don't really think that Tecton Architects are going to tell us anything different than that, you know, the replacement of the roof. And that, you know, that's pretty much their purview, is to point out, you know, things that have exceeded their useful life at the facility. And, you know, there's no doubt that this roof is well beyond its expected lifespan.
Okay. Somebody else have it? Dan Chopik, thank you.
No, I just, this is Dan Chopik. Just to follow up on that, Dave, if, for instance, this survey determined that there were other needs for Booth Hill School, wouldn't that change the projection for what was going to happen? Or if the, for instance, if the projection was that Booth Hill School is beyond its useful life and needs to be replaced, wouldn't that put a crimp in this roof project?
Well, I think, this is Dave Cody again. Yes, I think it could, but I think we'd be a long way away from that. I think we'd have some time, at least, we'd have the master plan prior to this going out to bid, before we really expend some serious dollars on this project. So I think we'd be able to pull the plug, but you know, then we have a whole new set of capital items for the town to decide whether they're going to move forward with something like a renovators new project or an extension to Booth Hill, which would be a serious project with, you know, a serious commitment at 66% on the town's part. So, but they will be providing us input to the capital plan for items that are beyond their useful life. And that's, you know, that's the goal of this study. There may be also code issues and other, you know, crowding issues that may come to light as part of this study, and their recommendation. We'll have to wait to see, you know, collectively studying all the schools, all the demographics, and deciding what, you know, the options will be to present to the board.
Okay, does anyone else have a question?
Lynn Salta. I have a question about this document called an educational specification. that
That's where
Barbara
we were
sent
going
along.
next. Yes.
Oh, okay. Then I'll wait for you to open and discuss unless you want to hear my question first.
Okay. Let me just say that this was another piece of, another part of the materials that were distributed to you. And this is something that the state, Oscar, requires when we are creating the bid to go to the state for funding. Paul had worked on this and put this together and sent this to Dave. There will have to be edits made, I believe, in the document. Those were the highlighted areas that he wanted, Paul wanted clarification on. Paul, would you like to expand more on what the rationale for this document?
Yes, thank you. That's Paul Lisi from Antonazzi Associates. So the educational specs are a requirement by the state. It's more commonly used for when you're either constructing a new facility or expanding or renovating, major renovations on existing, because the other educational specs will include primarily the programmatic needs of the facility, you know, how many classrooms are required, what the square footages are, you know, all the different components and programmatic needs of a facility. So, you know, in this case, when we're just simply doing a roofing project, the state still requires an educational specification, and that's simply basically to justify the project. So it's a document that explains the condition, kind of summarizes the existing conditions and the need for this project. There are, you know, this was a draft I prepared, but I think, you know, Dave needs to review it and make sure that some of the items that I assumed based on other Trumbull schools is applicable for this particular building.
Dave, do you want to comment on this?
Certainly. I've started to review it. I've had to request a little bit of information from within the several people within the district. I've gotten that information. I should be working with Paul over the next few days to kind of finalize that document. I think it's pretty straightforward. You know, it's a similar document than as we used at Middlebrook. And, you know, again, a roof is a roof. We can definitely demonstrate the need for the roof there because it's well beyond its expected life. It's over 30 years old. So, but I think it's just a part of the process to get the grant application. I don't think, you know, as well as enrollment projections, which we'll be working on, you know, putting together. And historically, we've used the Malone McBroom demographic study from 2019. We'll probably have some fresh demographic information from the Tecton effort that can be used to apply for this grant as well. Unfortunately, a roof project doesn't have a calendar such as a, you know, extension or addition project or renovators new project, which has a priority list that you have to have your application into the state by a certain time or date each year so the legislature can consider it. Roof projects are approved at the Oscar level, the DAS level. So as long as we meet their window for applying, which is the first 10 days of the month, we can apply anytime during the year for a roof project.
Does anyone have additional questions about this form or any of the materials that were distributed to you for the meeting? Okay. Well, I think our next steps are going to be, I think at this meeting, I want to thank Paul and Dave and Kevin for their hard work on both of these projects. I think at this point we can close our discussion of the Booth Hill Elementary School roof for this evening. And I think that we need to plan to have another meeting so that we can review the bids that come in. And that meeting should be the week of October 17th. So my thought is that we would go back to Wednesday's October 19th. And I would ask how that works for everybody. Does anyone foresee any problems with that date? If not, that should be our next meeting date. One thing with the bids, Kevin, do I recall that there were copies of the bids that we could review before the meeting?
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure. Might ask for electronic file and 3 copies and 1 original, but we could get, you know, we can make copies and people want to come to the office, pick them up on
Well, that's what I was thinking.
On October 14th, or, you know, I don't know if I've done that day, but maybe on Friday the 14th, we'll have them here. People want to come
Late
pick
in
them
the
up.
day? Okay, all right, that'd be great, because then we get the chance to really go through them and review what's there. Okay.
How
that'd
many
be
copies
wonderful.
would we need is Mark and
How about I just,
and all
I'll
that?
let you know as we get closer.
Okay,
I can circle back to them and say, this is the purpose of the next meeting, and we're going to be reviewing some documents. Do you want to get to see them ahead? And if you want to get to see them ahead, we want to make sure we have a copy for you.
sure.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, that's great. Is there any other business to bring before the committee tonight? Well, if not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Joanne Glasser-Orenstein.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. And then I guess we need a second on that.
I'll second that, Lynn Salter.
Thanks very much. Okay. I assume we can pass that by unanimous consent. Thanks, everybody, for your participation, and thanks again for being so flexible.
Good night.
Thank you. Good
We'll be
night.
in touch.
Have a
Good
good
night.
night.
Good night.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Right.
Right.